not exercising for the majority of their day, a lot of them are sitting at their desks. And even sitting at their desks, they're not sitting here upright. For the most part, they're spending hours a day slouched forward, working at their computers or playing on their cell phones. So if you think about what happens to your body when you're in this position, your pecs are shortening, everything in the back is sort of lengthening and just weak. There's no lower trap use, there's mid to no mid-trap use. Everything is kind of bad. You think about the thoracic spine, everything gets very tight through that area. So they come in here and they want to work out after they've been sitting like this all day, and suddenly they go to lift their arms over their head, and that's their shoulder flexion. So if you think about pressing movements, pull-ups, anything that they're working on overhead, now they're trying to make up for that lack of range of motion coming from somewhere else. So a lot of the compensations that you'll see are like increased arch in the low back, just trying to get those shoulders overhead. Or when they're in that press position, they're now jutting the head forward, trying to get their ears through to say that they're in a full position. Definitely not a great thing for the neck, not a good thing for the shoulders, just in general movement issues. A lot of the issues that I'm seeing here, definitely tight pecs, just imbalance, that sort of thing. So if you're looking at warm-ups and what movements you guys are doing during the WOD, if you can kind of coordinate some of your warm-up activities to what you're expecting them to do, that can definitely help them. There's some great stretches. If you go online on Mobility WOD, I can try to bring in Supple Leopard. But one of the things that K-Star talks about is sort of getting that end range flexion and all the tightness that you get in some of this anterior neck musculature. If you can loosen this area up, it tends to clear that joint and help you to get into a more kind of fully flexed position. You're a great example of tight shoulders. So if you want, we can kind of show one of the mobilizations with one of the bars.
Good.
So just check your shoulder flexion. So before we do anything, just try to raise your arm overhead. Go. Not terrible. Okay, so let's do that side. So what I want you to do is kind of come underneath the bar. You're going to get it right in the shoulder, kind of as close to the neck as you can. Perfect. And from here, I don't really want you to lift up on the bar, just enough for body weight, just so you have some pressure. I want you to flex the arm up and down, just kind of mobilize it at end range, and then work on kind of that internal, external rotation piece as well. What do you feel in here?
A little bit of movement. Tightness.
So some of your people, you're actually going to end up with some pain. So they may have to start a little bit earlier in that motion and just kind of work through to kind of clear that joint. Come on up and try your flexion again and see how it goes. A little bit.
Touch loose.
A little better.
Yeah.
Okay. So another piece outside of that anterior neck musculature and that sort of first rib that gets elevated are lats. If you guys can do anything to open up their lats and stretch their lats, it's only going to help. You can think contract, relax. So if you want to have them hang a band, just loop a band over the rig. They can pull down a little bit with the elbow just to contract through that lat and then lean in to stretch. That's another great way just to free up a little bit of extra mobility in that area. So just thinking about sort of scapular activation. If you go through, you loosen up those two things, now they're able to move the bar overhead. But one of their problems is they tend to be upper trap dominant. So everything they're doing is kind of pulling through the upper traps, stabilizing through the upper traps versus stabilizing through the shoulders themselves. One of the really nice things that you guys have are the bands, so the crossover symmetry bands. If you see somebody that you feel like is really upper trap dominant, I have that scapular activation program. It's literally pictured out, hanging in the wall in the room back there. All they have to do is go in and pull it out. If you guys want to go through it though, just so you can recognize what some of the exercises are, the nice thing about that program is it's basically helping with the correct movement patterns just by activating those muscles in an appropriate order. So if you see somebody who's really upper trap dominant, not a bad idea to tell them, hey, come in 5-10 minutes early before class starts since there's only one set of bands. I want you to grab the paper out of the back, just go through those exercises. Most of them are going to start with very light bands. So you have a light band and a heavy band. If you want to come over, we can go through all those. You need it to be customized for every person. Come on over, I'll use you as an example if you don't mind. So for the person, for the high level exercises, the higher height exercises, you're going to have your first three. In order for them to set this to the correct height, you're just going to have them stand, cross one arm in front, so it's sort of at eye level, and then they're going to slide the bands down to that level. And we'll do the same thing on this side. you're in, you want to think about having them in a nice ready position. So he's going to have the knees bent, abs engaged, sort of everything locked down. First movement that he's going to do is elbows high and outside, and he's just pulling back. You want to get a 2-second pause and then relax forward. Come down just a bit. There you go. Perfect. If you see them doing this and you see them moving and their shoulders are in their ears, they are not doing it right. Okay, come over, let them know. They need to try to engage a little bit lower through the traps. None of that. Nothing with the shoulders in the ears. Perfect. Typically, it's 5 to 8 reps. You get a 2-second pause at the back, relax forward, move on to the next exercise. So next one, we're going to do 3-pound band.
Are you sure?
I know. But we're talking about average athletes. So this one, you're going to do elbows sort of high and outside, but you're keeping the arms straight. So he's still thinking about kind of engaging, kind of pulling those scap down and back. He's coming out and back in.
That's why it's crooked as
Oh,
fuck.
no,
I saw that. Like something
Oh,
that makes sense.
I was gonna say, we can make photocopies of it again, and then put in like little sheet protectors, that way this is a good
Absolutely. Alex is going to have knees bent, and then instead of staying upright, he's going to tilt the whole body forward, keeping the back straight. So from here, you're looking more at a pull down motion. Perfect. So big thing that you're looking for here is the position of his head. As soon as he bends forward, you don't want to see his head jutting forward and sticking out. Not a great thing. Good. You want that nice straight line at the back. You don't want to see them bent over with their butt poked out and their back rounded. Good.
Right, soft?
Yep. Not good. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. Next 4 exercises on this program, we're actually going to drop this down to knee level. So you've got to, if you want to hook another one down here at the bottom, that's fine. You can also just slide the whole thing down. Yeah, so just take them down to about the knees. So first movement, he's going to continue facing the rig. Nice ready position again. This time he's doing, oh no, sorry, elbows high and outside. Yep. Back down. So try to make a nice smooth motion out of this.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Perfect. As he's pulling, you don't want to see the the shoulders coming in towards his ears. A lot of times that's one of the big compensations you'll see is that those shoulders just come right up to the ears, or the elbows are only able to come kind of through partial range of motion. If they can't keep the elbows high and do the rotation, that's okay. You can have them do elbows low as long as you're seeing that good kind of mid to lower trap activation and you're not seeing the upper traps really kicking in. Okay.
Why is this one that people feel pain with?
Because you're really getting into the rotator cuff muscles here. So depending on sort of strength in the shoulders and what's going on with their shoulders, if you're really stressing those external rotators, those rotator cuff muscles, you'll tend to feel that discomfort.
So if they feel pain, should they just do less weight?
Try a lighter band or try bringing the elbows down a little bit, because sometimes just lowering that slight bit will still let them get into the external rotation without that stress of having the shoulder at 90. Okay, so you're stressed. Okay, so good, ready position again. Engage, move up, and back down. So with this one, you're only coming to about here. Perfect, and then come on down. If you see them doing this and the band is smacking them, they need to step out a little bit further. Because sometimes you'll have people where the band is just kind of in too close to their body. Okay. This is another one where you'll see them lift like this, where you'll see them push the head forward. If you're seeing that, a lot of them, it's just too heavy of a band. They need to step back on their resistance. Okay.
So if you're gonna, how do you answer the question of why they should do this? Why do I do this?
It's actually written all out there. So if
Okay.
they have questions, they can read it.
Okay.
Refer them back. So the whole thing is just.
Because if I just say
trying to get those muscles back.
you're doing this, like they're gonna be like, well, why is that bad?
So if they're if they're lifting the upper trap and they're upper trap dominant, it tends to also pull the glenohumeral head forward a little bit. So instead of having that kind of nice joint space for everything to clear, you're closing that space down and trying to move through it. So you're actually at a much higher risk for impingement, potential rotator cuff issues, biceps issues, lots and lots of different things.
That's what I wanted to know.
Go back to you.
Max Abby.
All the bad things.
Facing away.
Facing away. And this one's basically going to get pressed. So you're going to start shoulder height and then you're pushing out.
Here. Out.
And back down. So this is another big place that you're going to see that forward head position. Anytime you're seeing that really forward head position, they're a huge risk for hurting their neck. So please, make them drop weight, make them focus on good spinal alignment. Perfect. So this may be a place that you really see a limitation with either lat length or that tight anterior musculature. So they may only be able to come to here, and that may be their end range. If that's the case, that's okay. Have them just move through that range versus trying to force something, but definitely encourage them to follow up with mobility. Mobility is huge for shoulders. Good. So the nice thing about this system, you're good, is you can use these same 7 exercises to do different things. So if you've got somebody who you're worried about activation, you're worried that they're going to cause some impingement, have them come in and do the activation beforehand. If it's somebody that you're potentially looking at rehabbing from a shoulder injury, or if you've done a lot more sort of intensive work with the shoulders that day, you may want to encourage them to come and do this, but do it in a recovery fashion afterwards. So it's still the same movements, still the same weights, but instead of doing that 2-second pause and relax back in, they're pulling back, and then it's a 4-second kind of negative to return to their neutral position. All that's going to do is help to increase blood flow into the muscles that you've just worked, and that's going to help to reduce any inflammation that they've caused and just kind of clear things out for them. So pec minor. Pec minor is another huge thing. Most of the people that I'm seeing that are having shoulder issues, it's a lack of internal rotation that I'm seeing. If we can free up pec minor and subscap, night and day difference in how much range of motion they could get. A lot of your athletes, if they were former throwing athletes, that internal rotation limitation is going to be even bigger. If you think about this and what you're doing in here, you've got to think about your snatch positions. Those folks who cannot get into that elbows high and outside position to be able to transition the bar overhead. You'll see a lot of them with the bar really far out in front of them. And honestly, those are your folks who are at a big risk of looking at slap tears, rotator cuff issues, labral issues, all of those things, okay? If you see that person and they can't get into a good internal rotation position, one quick way to check, if you think that might be what is going on, is have them do just a quick range of motion check. So have them do that reach up in between the shoulder blades. And a lot of times what you'll see is one hand they can get way up, and the other hand they're sort of stuck here. When you're getting those big imbalances, that's something that they really, truly need to work on every day. And honestly, it's outside of here that they're going to end up getting better. So the stretch that we tend to use the most kind of from therapy is the sleeper stretch. That's laying on the side, kind of getting the shoulder pinned back underneath them, starting at 90 degrees and coming down. If they don't really want to lay on the floor, you can get them to do a similar thing on the rig. So you're just going to put the arm up. They've got to engage the shoulders, so they're sort of pinching that shoulder blade down and back. And then from there, it's just a gentle push down towards the floor. So even here, they'll sort of hit that brick wall. My shoulder's not going to give anymore. If I bring my elbow down just a little bit, you can see the difference in the range. Everything moves freely. So if you guys are ever using this internal rotation stretch as a warm-up or something like that, and you see somebody on the rig and their arm is way down here, they're not in the right starting position. They've got to get the elbow high at least 90 degrees and then come down. Why don't you guys try it just so you
it's
can
just
see what it
gentle
feels
pressure?
like. Very gentle pressure. You're just going into that resistance.